Welcome to Envision and to the change management process overview. Really, 2020 has been a strange year for everyone, and it's been a year full of change. So I think this is a really good topic and a timely topic. And as we start to close out 2020 and look ahead into 2021, how can we start to move things forward again and focus on those change initiatives that we all want to do? My name is Ken Brazerol. I'm the Vice President of Operations at NCI. And really what got me interested in change management is I started my career as a project manager, and we found that over time, what projects were successful, what change initiatives were successful, and which ones failed. And so really I started to try to understand kind of the background of change management and what can make it successful. So really what I want to talk about today is change management, and we'll talk about it at three levels. We'll talk about it at how individuals deal with change. We'll talk about it at a project level, how can you manage the change? And then at an enterprise level, how do you prepare your organization for not only this change today, but changes in the future? And then obviously, the pandemic has added a whole new wrinkle to change management. And so we'll talk about COVID, we'll talk about what that has meant for change, but then also what opportunities that brings forward with this. So during this presentation, we have a window at the bottom for you to answer or for you to ask questions. I encourage everyone to fill that out as we go through. That will allow us to, at the end, come back and circle around and make sure that we can answer those questions for you. So don't feel the need to hold your questions. You know, answer those or ask those throughout the course of the presentation. So first thing I want to focus on is changes at an individual level. How do individuals deal with change? And what are some approaches to kind of help people through change, right? What are some strategies behind that? So when you look at why change initiatives are successful or fail, it's really about people management at the end of the day. We all know change is hard, and we all know that it boils down to how do we get people through that change process? And so let's start there, and let's kind of talk about how people react to change. So the first thing to really think about is, you know, there's this model out there. It's called the Kubler-Ross change curve. And if this sounds familiar, it's because it's the same people that have created the grief curve. And what they found during their research is that it's really almost the same cycle. You know, you look at what are the steps of change and how do people react to that. The first reaction is shock. Oh my gosh, you know, I would have never thought we were going to do this. What does this mean for me? How are we going to get through this? The next step is denial. Well, I don't really use that tool a whole lot. It's probably not going to affect me all that much. It's going to affect the accounting department, or it's going to affect the HR department more than it's going to affect me. So that next stage is denial. Then comes frustration. You know, oh, why do we have to change? We've been doing things like this for the last 20 years. Everything's worked fine. I don't want to go through this. And then really what we see is things start to bottom out, and you start to see that depression of the realization sets in, and it says, you know, oh, I'm not going to get around this. This is a real thing. How are we going to do this? And the scary part about this is, I think we've all dealt with this change curve to some extent this year. And the bigger the change, or the longer the change takes, the deeper that valley can be. And so it's really important as a leader within an organization, as a change manager within an organization, that you kind of understand that, and you're conscious of that, and you're helping people move through that process. Then as people realize that, you know, this isn't going away, this is something that we're going to have to do, they start back up the other side. So it first starts with, well, how does this work for me? How do I make this change work for me? What's it going to mean for my everyday life? Then you start seeing people say, you know what? This isn't actually so bad. This tool actually makes things a little bit easier. It's a little nicer. I like the interface better than what I used to have, whatever it might be. There's that decision to say, okay, I'm going to integrate this into my daily life. And then finally comes integration. And integration, really, we hear it a lot, right? It's the new normal, right? So it's like you've kind of got through that valley, you're on the other side, and now this is just day-to-day life for you. I think there's a couple of things to call out here. The first one is it takes everybody a different amount of time to kind of get through this cycle. You're going to see people that move through this cycle in a matter of hours or days. These are your early adopters. These are some really key people within your organization, and we're going to come back to talking about them here in a little bit. The other thing to realize is that this isn't linear. So you can move back and forth throughout this curve. You might be in acceptance or decision one day and then move back to frustration, right? So just understand that it's going to take time. Everyone moves through it at different paces, and continue to work through that. That's normal. When you look at kind of some different strategies behind it, so really what I've outlined here is 3 strategies behind change management. And I wanted to call out these 3 because it gives you kind of some different levels of change. So the first one being the Luden change model. And really what's great about this one is it's easy. It's 3 steps. And really the first thing is unfreeze. So you look at what you want to change, you understand where your detractors are going to come from, where the opponents of change are going to be, and you attack that head on. You make your case, you sell the change, you help them to understand that this is going to be great, you show them the benefits, and you kind of get that all done up front, and you allow the people to kind of vent their frustrations and move on. Then you move into the next piece, which is transition or change. And really what you look at here is you implement the change, you train the change, you test it out, and you make sure that it's not affecting other processes or procedures that you have within the company. And then after everyone kind of gets used to it, after you've made sure it's viable and the change is what you want to do and you're seeing the results that you want to see, then you harden and you freeze again. And now that becomes kind of the new normal or the status quo going forward. And that helps everybody to kind of move forward together. So now there's pluses and minuses with this process. One is the benefits are it's easy, right? So it's the simplest model. It's something that you'd want to use if you're kind of a company or a group that isn't used to change or is just kind of scratching the surface of kind of moving those levers. It also deals with the opposition right up front. So you kind of deal with it all up front and kind of get it out of the way, and then you kind of move forward together as a group. The downsides are you can spend a lot of time in that upfront opposition unfreeze stage spinning your wheels. People are going to fight it, people are going to buck it, and it can really cause it to drag out and kind of take some time. So although it's the simplest model, there's some things that we can add on to it to make it a little bit better. The next model, this is kind of the most, I'll call it the most mature model. So it's the other end of the spectrum from the Luden model. This is the AKDAR change management model. So, and really what this is this is for mature organizations that have leaders at all levels that can really embrace the change and help the change move forward. And so when you look at this, it was developed by a man named John Kotter. He is a Harvard professor. He spent his entire career learning about change, understanding change, and really put it all into this model. So what the first step is it's establish a sense of urgency. Help the company to understand, here's our window. This is the change we're trying to take place. This is why we got to do it. The market's ready for us now. We've got this window before our competition moves in. Whatever that sense of urgency is that you need to instill, that's the first thing. And that's really done at the leadership level. The next one is you build the coalition. So remember early on I talked about the change curve and how individuals react to it. You want to find those early adopters. You want to find those people. And you want to build your coalition. These people can be at any level. They can be a management level. They can be a frontline worker. It doesn't matter. Because what you want to do is you want to pull those people together. You want to help them to lead that change moving forward from either a peer group or from a leadership level. The next item is share the why. Why is this change important? What's it going to mean for us going forward? How do you share that vision of what that blue sky is for the next level? So communicate that why. Then basically, as a leadership, your job is almost done at this point, because what you want to do is you want to turn it over to the team, you want to turn it over to those change leaders, and you want to say, go back to your departments, go back to your teams, and figure out how we move from today's state to the next state. You understand what that why is, you understand what that vision is, you're the ones that want to push this forward, you understand the need for change, and so you want to push that forward. And then as a leadership team, what you do is you create that culture of change, and you start rewarding change where you see it take place. You want to empower the team, you want to turn over the keys, and you want to start celebrating those short-term wins. Hey, look, the accounting department did this. We're one step closer to change. Hey, look, the HR team has changed their processes, and we're all moving in the right direction. And that helps the team to understand that there's those short wins, there's those movement that we can get, and you create that culture of continuous improvement. And that culture is really what makes this change model different and more successful than other models, is it doesn't necessarily stop there. You're always looking for improvements, you're always helping yourself move further down that line. And then the last one is you institutionalize the best practices. So understand where those pockets of creativity are happening, and push that across the rest of the organization to be successful. All right. The last model I want to talk about is kind of in between the two. So the first model we talked about is maybe people that are really brand new to change, don't have a lot of experience with it. The next model, a more mature organization, someone that you can have strong bottom-up approach to change. And this model is kind of that sweet spot in between the two. So you might have a really strong leadership team. You might have a good management team that you can kind of push that change down through the organization. And really what we look at here is, it's called the AKDAR Method, because everyone loves a good acronym, and that's what makes good process, is a good acronym. The first thing to understand is the awareness piece. Understand that change is hard, and really your job as a leader is to help people through that change. Provide the context, be transparent. If you look at this step, this has really been the same step in all three processes. That's really key. The next one is explain the why. Provide the team the desire for change. Show them kind of what things can be if we move through that change properly. The next one, knowledge. Train the team. Give the team the tools to succeed. Provide them the coaching that they need, whatever that looks like. And then ability. Help to grow those skills, help the continuous learning, help them to kind of embrace that change moving forward. And then the last item, corrective actions and positive reinforcement. It gets back to that culture of learning, that culture of continuous improvement, and positive reinforcement, celebrating the wins. So really what I want to do now is kind of take a breath, look across these three models, and understand what are the steps that are similar or the same between all three, right? So when you look at change, when you look at these models, when you understand how am I going to implement change, what's my strategy for implementing change, to me it breaks down to four things. First one is create that why, share your vision, help the team to kind of move forward and kind of move forward towards that solution. The next one is empower the team, give them the tools that they need, coach them, train them, give them the team of early adopters that they can bounce ideas off of and kind of move things forward around. So help the team to kind of embrace and adapt. The third thing is don't get locked in. Create a culture of continuous improvement. You're not going to get it right the first time. You're not going to be able to think through all of the different nooks and crannies and waves that are going to be created by this change. Don't get locked in. Create a model of continuous improvement, adapt, improve, so on and so forth. And then the last one, celebrate the wins. Build that positive reinforcement, help the team to understand that this is a process. We're not going to get there in 1 day or 2 days or 20 days. It's going to take time, and we need to celebrate the successes along the way. So that's really kind of what we look at as far as how individuals deal with change, What are some strategies, kind of what do we want to look at as we're starting to build our plan for how to manage the change? And that takes us into our next topic, and that's the mechanics of change, how to project manage your change. And to me, it's really two ideas. The first one is treat the change like a project. Build a scope. Understand the timeline. Understand the cost. Document what the goals are. Help create kind of that North Star document that will help everybody kind of move through this process. The second thing is get stakeholder sign-off. We're going to come back to this a little bit later, but change can't happen in a vertical or in a bubble. It needs to be something that is shared and feedback is given and people are moving back and forth through the process. So get stakeholder sign-off, get feedback, and continuously improve. And then when you start looking at it, how are you going to measure it? How are you going to know that the change is effective? Are we seeing the benefits that we need? If you're not, you need to adapt. You need to re-baseline the plan. You need to look for areas where it's working and where it's not working and be successful. So again, treat it like a project, really define what you're going after, and understand what the levers are that you're going to see the changes in order to help the team move forward through that process. So we've looked at how individuals deal with change. We've looked at, how do you manage that change? What are the logistics of that? And then the last thing that I want to talk about with change is how do we prepare our organization? So when you take a step back, you start saying, yeah, this change is great. We're going to get through this change, but how do we get through the next 50 changes? How do we prepare the team for the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever that looks like as far as making sure that we're successful down the road? And so really it boils down to a handful of things. The first thing is prepare your team for change. Understand that change is hard. Understand that leadership is critical at this piece. And your job as a leader is to help that team navigate that change. So when we start looking at kind of what those key things are, the first thing is communicate. You cannot over-communicate. Not everyone is going to understand what the change is, what that why is, what that vision is the first time you communicate it. We all know it takes everybody, some people say 7 times, some people say 10 times, whatever that number is. So communicate, 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 over-communicate the change, help everyone to get on the same page. The next piece is kind of meet your team where they need to learn or how they learn. So some people need a process document. They're going to read that process document. Everything's going to be fine. Other people are going to need videos or demos or live training. Vary that training across the teams. Help the team to learn the way they need to learn in order to move the thing forward. Another thing to really watch out for is stress. So I think this is something we can all relate to, especially this year with COVID and the pandemic that's going on, is you have to know when to put your foot on the gas and kind of push the team, but you also need to know when to pump the brakes. You'll start seeing weird things as you start implementing change within your organization. Things that people have been doing fine for the last 20 years, all of a sudden, they don't know how to do, or they're not doing correctly anymore. These are signs of stress, that people aren't doing well with the change or with the difference. And it may be time to just pump the brakes a little bit, help the team to reset, and kind of regroup before you move forward again. The next thing is confidence. Bring the confidence, be a leader. Help to be that rock that the team needs in order to know that, everything's going to be fine. We're going to get through this. We're going to move things forward. At the end of all of this pain and suffering and difficulty, it's going to be better. So bring the confidence, be that leader your team needs. And then the last thing is hire for the right skill set. Bring in people to your organization that can be impactful, but impactful not only for this in particular change or this thing that you're trying to do, but for future changes. And so that's really what this next slide is about, is what are those skills you can look for? What are those things that you can bring to your team that will pay off not only today, but many years from now? And really when you look at this list, it's all about soft skills. It's all about those things that, hard skills are important, right? You're not going to teach me how to create a web app or a mobile app for a phone. Those things are obviously critical for your positions, but also look for these soft skills. And really some of the things that you're gonna find either bringing into the organization that you don't have, or things that you can coach up in your team, that you can help your team to develop over time. And so some things that I wanna call out here is, critical thinking. You're gonna provide that vision statement, that why statement, and you're gonna have to rely on your team to kind of connect the dots between where you're at today and where you need to be, and be able to kind of help you navigate that change and kind of move things forward. So critical thinking, creativity, those dots aren't always in a straight line. Those dots can sometimes be very, very messy. So when you look at those two things, creativity and critical thinking, these are key things for change, and they help to identify the people that may be your early adopters, that may move through that change curve a little bit easier, because they can quickly connect the dots and understand how to get from here to there more easily. The next thing to talk about is emotional intelligence. People that can relate with others and people that are mindful and can listen are becoming more and more important, because tooling and technology is great and it helps make everything easier, but you have to build those relationships and build that trust in order to really move things forward and create that environment of change. Another item that I want to call out is coaching. So you're not going to have all the skills you need today right out of the gate. You're going to need to adapt and learn and improve. And so really somebody that's coachable is going to help you, again, in the future as new things roll out. People that are willing to take advice and improve and move things forward are going to be key for your team. So because this is a technology conference, because this is something that everyone's kind of thinking about, what does change mean for me? What are technological changes that are going to happen? I did a little research and I found out when you look at digital initiatives, when you look at change initiatives for technology, there's really one main escape point. So Harvard Business Review, HBR, did a big study over multiple years from companies all over the world, 1,300 plus companies from all over the world. And they really found that change fails at one point. This is the most common place that change will fail. And that's at the point of scale. So you might pilot something, it might work great. You might come up with an idea and be able to show that it works. But as soon as you try to scale that idea, it can fail and it can fall apart. And there's really two main reasons for that. The first reason is unspoken disagreements among top managers. So remember early on when we talked about project management and how to manage the change, one of the key things that I called out was stakeholder alignment, stakeholder agreement. If you don't have that early on, if you don't include everybody, that's where one of the main reasons initiatives can fail. So the team that's piloting the change initiative, the team that has the most say in how things are working, the team that is figuring it out and kind of living it day to day, they might love the change and they might be able to show during the pilot, it's working great. This is exactly what we need to do. We're going to see all these great benefits from it. But if they're not working across the organization, if they're not bringing in the stakeholders, if they're not getting feedback, as soon as you try to scale this and as soon as you try to roll this out, the other groups are going to be like, well, I mean, nobody asked my opinion. Why does my team need to do this? I don't understand the value in it. And so really getting your stakeholder buy-in and your stakeholder agreement is key to making sure that initiatives don't fail. The second thing is making sure you have the infrastructure in place. So another area where it falls apart is understanding the infrastructure needs at pilot is much different than understanding the infrastructure needs at scale. So making sure that your infrastructure is in place, making sure that you have failover, making sure that you have, are you load balanced? Can you handle the extra traffic that this tool is going to present as soon as you add more people? How does it integrate with your other tools? Change is hard to begin with, and when you add tool issues or technology issues to the process, you're not going to get the buy-in from the teams to do that. If every time you hit save, it takes you 5 minutes, you can go get a cup of coffee and go to the bathroom between when you can kind of start working again, that's not going to make for a good user experience, and it's going to kill your change initiative. So we talked about change. We talked about how to deal with it at a personal level. We talked about how to deal with it at a project level, and we talked about how to kind of prepare your organization for change. And so now really what I want to do is I want to take a step back and look at, this has been a crazy year. 2020 has been a crazy year. Everyone has had to deal with the effect of change and what COVID has presented. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Let's understand, what change have we been through and how we kind of navigated that, but also what opportunities are out there for change and what kind of environment are we seeing now that may be different than what we saw in the past. So the first thing is, change is a little bit different today than it used to be. Everyone's working remote. The teams maybe don't have that same contact they used to have. And so how can you adapt and change and make sure that change in the COVID era is going to be successful? The first thing is look at maybe implementing an agile approach. So to me, when I think of agile, it's a hot button phrase. Lots of companies are throwing it around, even people that aren't doing software development. And really, to me, what it boils down to is change is agile is communication. So have those daily touch points with your teams. Make sure that they are always focused on the highest priority items so that you can continue to move forward and keep those things moving. Help the team to understand how to break down that change into smaller steps and attack those things on a daily basis. Maybe if reporting needs to be changed, or if your end goal is different types of reporting, break that change down into smaller pieces. Just focus on data entry. Focus on all the different things that you're going to have to do there. Focus on how you need to look at the data differently, and then get to the point where the reporting is different. The next thing that we have to kind of look at is file sharing solutions. How do you get the team to be more collaborative? So what used to be a 5-minute conversation at somebody's desk, stop by, hey Brad, how things going? Great. How's the family? Great. Here's what I need from you, kind of move on, is now an email. And it takes 10 minutes to write the email, and it takes you an hour to get a response. And then you need to rewrite the email because you didn't understand what you were asking for. So really having those file sharing solutions in which you can have more real-time interaction is what we're trying to get at, right? So how do you put things on the cloud? How do you all edit a document? How do you provide your comments? How do you see what other people are saying? That's gonna help those brainstorming sessions that you used to have in person. So really look at file sharing solutions and how you can best get that environment of collaboration even though you're working remote. The other item is communication. So don't pretend that you have the same level of engagement with your employees today that you had 9 months ago. It's just not the same. People working remote might love their job because they get to walk the dog and do all these types of things. And you might be seeing employee satisfaction through the roof, which is great. These are all good things. This is all things that we should be thrilled about. But you don't have that same kind of connectivity you had before. And so how can you get that connectivity? Look at how you how you communicate. Find different ways to communicate. Use Slack, use instant messaging. Put out blogs, put out vlogs. You know, just try different ways to connect with your team and interact with your team in order to get that same level of interaction and kind of involvement from your team that you had before. These are things that we're really seeing be kind of major trends. The other thing that's really changed is how you lead people. So, you know, you've got a lot of managers out in the workspace that have been doing this for a long time, and maybe they've never managed a team virtually. Or maybe they're struggling with kind of how to connect with their team. So there's things that you can do as a leader, as a manager, to really connect with your team and help push through and lead virtually. The first thing is make sure they feel connected to the company. Really reinforce those purpose and the purpose of the company and the values that the company has, because those are going to be transcendent. Those are going to be in place and help people feel connected no matter where they're at. The next thing is take the time to check in. Take the time for the one-on-ones. Help the team to feel connected and empathize with your employees. They're all dealing with things differently today. They might have different needs. You might have a very, very young team that's used to being virtual and talking with their friends on FaceTime and you know, IMing and texting and all those things, that this is a piece of cake for them. They love it. This is great. But you also probably have those little bit older employees that maybe live alone, that maybe don't have the same connection that they have, whatever, and really their family was coming into the office every day and seeing everyone. And so take the time, make those connections with those people, and empathize that, you know what, everyone's dealing with this differently, and they need to be met at a different place. The next thing is encourage collaboration. We talked about this. You know, things that used to take 5 minutes now are taking longer. So figure out what your collaboration tools are and how to improve those going forward. And then the last item is optimize your technology. So think about not only the tooling that's out there that can help optimize technology, but also if you're used to working with 3 monitors at your desk, make sure your employees have those same setup at home. You know, if this is going to be a permanent thing or something that's more long-term, make sure they have the same setup that they have that they can use at home that they used to use in the office to help them be more efficient and more effective with their job. So we talked about some of the change we're seeing in the marketplace. We've talked about some trends, right? We're seeing a lot of, you know, laptop sales. We're seeing a lot of cloud solution sales. We're seeing a lot of collaboration tool sales, VoIP services, things like that, right? But also there's a lot of opportunity out there for change. So you look at, you know, employees today, they've dealt with a lot of change this last year. They're seeing a lot of different things happening, and they're realizing that if I don't change, I might not have a job to go back to. And so more and more employees are becoming more willing and more willing to change and kind of move things forward. So when you look at that, this provides a great opportunity for you as a company, and that is things that you've been maybe trying to do for a few years or opportunities in the marketplace where maybe would have taken a little bit of more time in the past to get that change implemented are happening a little bit quicker. The other thing we're seeing is change is really accelerated. So when you look at change in general, we've seen a jump of maybe 5 to 10 years with some of these change initiatives that's out there. And things like virtual conferences. Virtual conferences a year ago or 2 years ago was not really a big thing, right? I mean, what we're doing today is a big leap forward as far as what conferences will look like in the future. They may never go back to exactly like they were before. The other thing that we're seeing is a lot of business travel being cut out and being replaced by video conferencing. This is something that, again, a lot of people have predicted and kind of expected to happen over time. And really, we're seeing that big jump forward this year with that. And so these change initiatives, these things that have been kind of on the plate for years, are now starting to accelerate, and we're seeing a lot of traction there. So how can I change my company? What are the things I need to focus on going forward? What's my opportunity? Really, what we're starting to see is companies that are being most successful are understanding what their customers are looking for. So engage with your customers. Understand what success means for your customers and how you can adapt to their needs. So make sure that you are kind of filling that need that your customers need. Make sure you're filling that need that your customers have, and you're helping them to be successful. We're seeing this within the restaurant industry. We're seeing it where restaurants have moved to takeout or delivery and kind of away from their day-to-day dine-in restaurants, right? So understand what your customer wants, help to engage with them, and then improve your services in order to help them improve. All right, just a couple more things here. So what are some common change topics that COVID has kind of driven? And really what I want to touch on is just a handful of things here. We've talked about remote work management. We've talked about cloud solutions. What's that next big step forward as far as change goes? Really what we're seeing is, what does return to workplace look like? So now everyone's settled in at home. Everyone's been working from home for 9-10 months, right? That's going to be a big change, pulling everyone back into the office again and getting them to adapt to what that new normal looks like again for that. So start looking at that now. Start understanding what that's going to mean for your company and how that's going to change where it was before. And that's really a big area of kind of change topics going forward. The other area that we're seeing is cybersecurity. We've got a full day of cybersecurity planned on another tract. Really, when you look at cybersecurity, now you're not securing one network, you're securing 50 networks or 80 networks or however many employees you have, right? You have to make sure that your business is protected with those remote employees. And so cybersecurity is definitely a big focus that we need to focus on. And the last item, and I really want to take some time on this, is employee wellness. So we talked about change is hard. We talked about there's that risk for that depression curve, right? And people are struggling with this change right now. They're feeling isolated, they're staying home. Everything is harder than what it used to be. And so really take the time, help your employees to get through this. You're going to have employees that are used to coming into the office, and that's really the only interaction they have with people is people in the office, and they're not getting that anymore. So take the time, connect with them, help them through this. Understand what tools are out there that can help your employees. You know, you might have a medical plan that offers psychology benefits, you know, those types of things. Help your employees to use those benefits if they need them. Connect with your employees, understand that this is very difficult on a lot of people, and help them to be successful and navigate through this. Listen to your team, listen to what they need. You have to manage your business as a whole, but you also have to focus on the individual and help to make those connections and help people to feel needed and wanted and secure with all of this change that's going on. The last thing is use your community. There's lots of great resources within the community, lots of great people out there that are willing to help. Reach out to those around you and help the community help you get through this. So to wrap, when we look at this, really some major takeaways to kind of look at. The first thing is treat change as a project. Understand that everyone's going to deal with the change differently. Identify your risks. Identify your stakeholders. Help the project to be successful, and use some of those strategies that you've had to kind of help you through that. The next thing is prepare your team and hire the right people. So this change, every hire that you make can be impactful. Make sure that the team is successful, not only for this change that you're going through, but also future changes that will be out there. Understand the common pitfalls. Understand where your company is most weak and prepare for those ahead of time. And the last thing is, although pandemics have been a driver of lots of change, the other thing to look at is it's a great time for change. People are more willing to change. Business models are changing, and this is causing businesses to look at kind of how do we help our customers differently or better. And this is a great time to embrace change and kind of drive it forward. So that's kind of what I wanted to go through. We have about 10 minutes left or so for questions. And so maybe we'll take a little time here and go through that.
Ken, great presentation. For someone who doesn't like change, I felt like it was written for me. Very well done, very thorough, very well organized. A couple of questions here, Ken. Hey, first from Bismarck, yeah, great having you online. Thank you. Good shout out to Bismarck there. Ken, next question, how do you choose a model? Once you choose one, is it always the same model? And how do you get started? What's your first indicator? What's your first action item of change?
Yeah, that's a great question. So really what you have to look at is understand what your environment is, right? You know, what is your company dealing with? Is it something that you guys are used to change? Do you have a mature organization that maybe has leadership at all levels? That might steer you towards one model. Is change new to you? Is this something that you've never done before? Make it simple, right? Simple is the best solution in most places, right? So really focus on the change and focus on how it's going to work best for your company. The other thing is, understand your team, right? And kind of attack those things ahead of time, right? If Brad doesn't like change, I'm going to come and sit down with you and get your buy-in early on because I don't want you bad-mouthing the change to everyone else, right? I want you to buy in up front. So these are all things that you have to consider up front and kind of when you're building out your plan, when you're building out your project, understand kind of what you're going to deal with and kind of how to attack those things.
Very well done, Ken. Really good question wrapped around remote work here from COVID-related activity is, do you have any tips on celebrating change across teams working remote? Most of my team is remote now and are pretty disconnected from other departments. So look, one of the things I think Network Center does very well is celebrate success, right, across a bunch of teams. Ken, from your experience, how does Network Center do it? And do you have any additional advice for how others can do it?
Yeah. We're not spending money other places that we used to, right? There hasn't been company picnics. There hasn't been Christmas parties. All these things are different. Spend that money reaching out to your team, right? So, we've sent out care packages all summer, right? We've done some of those things that have been really great. We've helped the team really feel part of the company still, right? These are all ways that you can feel connected, right? Send out those emails. Have company happy hours on Fridays. Do some of those things and really use that together time to celebrate the wins, right? Make sure everyone understands that, yeah, we're having a beer and that's great, but look at all this great stuff we've been doing. And even though everyone's working remote and they might not see it day to day, we're still making progress on things. Things are still moving forward and we're successful as a company. I think these are all ways that you can kind of connect with those remote employees and make sure that they feel part of the company.
Great answer, Ken. I love it. We do celebrate change well. Excuse me. Celebrate success as well. Yeah. Very well done. Hey, multiple questions here, Ken, on the screen about, are you willing to share the presentation? Is it available to others who have participated today? They want to absorb it and read it on their own time at home. Is that possible? Yeah, that's great. So all of our presentations that we give throughout the day will be available. So we'll be sending out emails afterwards, and I believe we'll have videos. We want to meet everyone at where their need is at, right? So if they want to read through it and absorb it, that's great. That's one thing. But also the videos will be available as well. Thank you, Ken. Very well done. Yeah, thank you, Brad.